Dharma Namo Sangaya Namo Gurumbe Namo Bidaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Gurumbe Namo Bidaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Kanden Lajen Gwenjen Tugan Rauga Shosan Bonde Chonzen Chejen Yabu Gwenjen Losan Sedan Cheba Nede Shekso Denye Nanga Sendi Bende Chizu Lama Jebe Zonga Talon Debe Sena Shinjo Denba Jeje Geja Shuso Sheje Chungwen Jave Lotu Gesan Nawe Jinju Leshe Tabe Benje Lame Zebe Tongde Tembe Dunde Ye wo che ye na zo me do ti xian do be na ze de zha wei zha ye de shi de ya zo shi na xin zhou che la xue ba ka xie tong men de ne sa ba lu nga ye so mi ge ji jie Ke ban dong ba sun ye me de ning ne ye ban zhang bu so zo ning me de mang de xue ye bang be den zhou de ye wo mo che ye la zhen ze ba da zha san ban ta be ye rang xie zhe la man dang ba ye na 诸位帕拉言之人之，皆当三边对之什么？三界确界查瓦阿特，南大于是应来行吧，顺着过了恰多，他们那我说过热当，是的帮助民农等吧。 大所去年上边给我担当着我困难抗病，结果了这种路上差不，但被宁波人多，妹妹这边的人见人，前面前边王波上边，对我马人中在上边。 看见开边走进中国，路上朝北下不了说话，妹妹这边的见见人，前面前边往北上边，对我马人中在上边，看见开边走进中国，路上朝北下了说话。 妹妹这边的人，红布上边养的我马人种子上边，看见开边走进，这边下了说完的，旁边上边拉马人不，他说就让边的人说。 Gaden Chimbu Kone Jeso Goso Toje Mudu Zedo Panden Sabe Lama Rembo Taso Ningara Benden Kone Jeso De Choda Tumo Mudu Zedo Panden Sabe Lama Rembo Taso Ningara Benden Dejo La Gaden Chimbu Changju Ningbu Ba Demba Anju Masan Jume Chera Paru Maye Manga Namge Ngobo Sozo Radi Yije Juyu Yusun Changze Lo Deya Ta Gade Paragan Para Sam Bodhisattva So Ha Deya Ta Gade Para Samga Bodhisattva So Ha Deya Ta Gade Bodhisattva So Gere Tongda Jaju Chewanda Mede Lojem Bezon Zojo Ne Dashi Ayo Yo So Shimbe Yo Dagi Chujuran Yube Sonam Jen Dola Benje Sanje Joba Sanje Jeda Janjoba Dane Jasu Je Dagi Jeza Dola Benje Sanje Joba Sanje Jeda Sanje Jona La Janjoba Dane Jasu Je Dagi Chujuran Yube Sonam Jen Dola Benje Sanje Joba Simje Tangje Dajala Nama Yanda was Sanje Hora was Jenny Tawasha. Teaching the Tambisha saying, Kulun Shama Sanji said that the summer kiss. Let me remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived altruistic motivation, we should participate in this discourse on Prajna Paramita, or the wisdom gone beyond. So last week when we talk a bit about this particular outline that deals with what is samsara or cyclic existence, korwa in Tibetan, and what is nyangde, state beyond or nirvana. And so we're going to continue from there. And so what is coming up is the etymological explanation of nyangde, nirvana, state beyond.
Nyangde la dreji ko ye na rahi nyangde. Mini ve nyangde, lakje nyangde, lami nyangde. So ye shen dembe tongbe. Tongyi deba de rahi nyangde yin la, teta tata deba tongji. Tenju lo la rahi nyangde yin la, nyangde mayi be mache de. Ngokden da tongde dembe shidi yebe so. Jimmy Maluba Pambe, Susa Tango, the Mineo Yang in La, Teta Tijan Yang Day, Tadu Yang Day, no Tonsuko, Saji Lame Yang Day, Chevatan, Tinya, Timmy Yang Day, Chever and Demons so. Shizu Mana Yang, sir. There Oma Beji, Lo Rapatam Juela. Yunze pang seva pang xin, ngame linyo yi pang be, dungi yi pungpo da chebe, tangko de lakji nyang de tang, yunze seva pang xin, ngame linyo pang be dungi yi pungpo da chebe, tangko de langmi nyang de zhoko. Shindo pechir tang, longa jenra ke simsamba tagi, langmi ke tse, Say this is you what you say and regret Jenaki sometimes regret all to me the journey. Did you sheba mean you sheba mean Omawa Nanje, Lami Yang say Pure you sheba me say there. Tibe, Song you was said you could teaching you learn you were heavy, shell. So Tamara Kusola Jiba Gors Suguni Lageda, not young data. Sugar Lami, young dis of somebody. Jimmy young did Teve Shani. Jimmy young the Teve Shani, young data. Duja the moose and Lama Yemi Shani, Lazi Lamichi song by Inje. Young day woman, young day and go then the machine girl. Suguni, the maybe said, Sugar and go dengi, Majibi Shero, Tedaya, Sashele, young and the machine. Zöli John the machine, Sonia de Nangatan and Gopani, here song sauce. That Juricos Richard Young de died Julia Rajin Yang de Sado, and the Laji Yang de Lami Yang de Se, Mini Yang de here is that. But did that dead Juris Richard Judus on the Yagone de Mines? Judus on the original he is. Because Rangi, because many Rangi young they said, Sidu Tony said, and Laji young they said, because Laji young did the Hamin young said, Tigala Kaza Tenjo Lula, Rangi young day and young day, my baby. Maja de Gaden. Tonde she did so. I said, that Rahin, this and she that 2 years ago. That Tenjo Gaden told you by Gaden because I did a because you remember with Pangpata, Tony, 2 years ago, see those in the Rahin Yang, my check Maris. But this good. You don't know that the exact human in your daddy came over it. Geshe Gyeltsen Malua Bambe Kusutango Mineo Nyang, Sanji Pape Nyang de Kali, Shitu Nyanga Bambe Tari, and Mineo Nyang de Lagris. Teta Tije Nyang de Tatu Yadi Toji is. Or the Karza Tatu Nyang, that Sanji Kota de Toya Yomara, the Tatu Nyang Toji is. Sasha Lame Chabardam. Tini la tingme ki nyang de ki chebar yumi chebar de mi do so chizu mangne yang der oma bi ji lu zang la rakpa zang la nyunzhe seba pang ta zna thoda ye kwa ri de nyunzhe seba pang xin ngame li ye pang bi dungye pang pu sang ma de che bi go de la ji nyang de chi ta Karza Dharma Nyunzhe Seva Pangxi Ngame Linyin Si Pangpe Dungin Si Phungpo Tang Chewe Gokden Rami Nyang Di Yo Gos Shindo Pechir Tang Longa Je Nang Ki Simsang Tang Langme Tse Dushi Inchupa Junshe Ban De Rikpe Je Nang Simsang Bi Eta To Tokda Rikpe Tokda Tume Di Dribni Di Junshe Bara Mendu Be Di Junshe Bara Mendu Dos O Tim Da Di Dang Nyangde Drejiru Kwa Taji Yandi Lama Yandi Siya Che Di Che O Di Shaya Di Che Nyangde Ngone Shangye Tala Da Karse Taji Yandi Lama Yandi Mene Yandi Songsha Warda Rashi Yandi Siya Di Tonyi Linya Rashi Yandi Shagris Ko Gasha Kasam Shi Kona Nyangde Sana Tershi Ko Ra Karsa Lamji Pang Toku Ya Jirwa Tonyi Siya Di Lamji Pang Toku Ya Jirwa Kora Rashi Tangpa Kona Rashi Miwa Yoyo Karima Jirwa Ko Pa Nyembu Pang Nani Yongsa Tsu Tabaya Zhu Tira Kaya Mara Ko Tonyi Siya Di Kora Ko Nezu Di Rabzhu Siya Jirima Jirwa Ko Ya Sa Di Zhu Goya Zhu Da Tinte Kesha Kaya Mara O Siya Di Rashi Nyangdi Siwa Da
So as Krishna read from the commentary and explained, from etymological point of view, Trashe in Tibetan, there are several types of Nyangde, nirvana, or state beyond suffering, literally translating here. So when we say from etymological perspective point of view, what we should keep in our mind is that every case of what is called nirvana is not necessarily the nirvana, a state beyond suffering. Okay. So from etymological point of view, let me just simply lay out the different types of nirvana. So one is called Rangshin Nyangde, naturally abiding nirvana. Okay, literally translating. Rangshin is natural, Ne means abiding, Nyangde means nirvana, state beyond, right? And then there is nirvana with remnant or reminder, Shartse Nyangde in Tibetan. Then there is a nirvana without remainder or remnant, Sharme Nyangde. And then there is non-abiding nirvana, Minebe Nyangde. Okay? So as we can say, at least there are four different types of nirvana or Nyangde, state beyond, we can look at from etymological point of view. Now of these, the only one that is not a real nirvana, so to speak, is the naturally abiding nirvana or Rangshin Nyangde, which in other words refers to emptiness itself, or the shunyata or sunnata, tongpanyi. Okay? And so that is the ultimate nature of phenomena, and it is established by way of negating or refuting the object of negation, which is intrinsic-ness or intrinsic existence. Okay? So emptiness is called naturally abiding nirvana or Rangxing Nyangde in Tibetan, but it is not what called a nirvana, a state beyond suffering necessarily. Okay? First keep that in mind. Now the other three are actual nirvanas, if you will. Non-abiding nirvana means that which does not abide on the extremes. It really refers to complete enlightenment or Buddhahood. So that is a state beyond suffering. It's a real right state beyond suffering, and it does not abide on the two extremes. So Geshe not yet explained, so I'm not going to run my mouth ahead of time. So I'll keep my footnotes stopped there. Then there is the nirvana. Usually when we say nirvana or state beyond suffering, it is defined as a state which is free of what we call contaminated karmic actions and delusions or afflictive emotions. Such a state is called nirvana. Okay? Relating to that, we can talk about nirvana with remainder and without remainder or remnant. Lagma means something left over, right? Lagma means remainder, something left over. So nirvana with remainder means that someone who has completely uprooted afflictive emotions and exhausted contaminated karmic actions, but he or she still has the contaminated skandhas or the psychosomatic aggregates. Right? These aggregates, which are the outcomes of contaminated karmic actions and delusions. So someone who just attained nirvana, actualized the state beyond suffering, abandoned all the delusions, exhausted all the contaminated karmic actions, but still has this body, right, or the aggregates. So that is called nirvana with leftover or remainder or remnant. Shartse, Nyangde in Tibetan. Now, once you abandon these contaminated aggregates, then that becomes the nirvana without remainder, nirvana with nothing left over, okay, remnant. That's called Lhangme Nyangde in Tibetan. Okay? So as Geshe explained, the emptiness is called naturally abiding nirvana. It's called nirvana, but it's not actually the state beyond suffering, right? Emptiness is the ultimate reality of phenomena, how everything, ontologically actually exists. So that state called emptiness. But then, of course, there are, you could find different scholarly take on this part, right? If you look at different textbook authors of the monastic universities, they might have a slightly different take on this issue. For example, from Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, ultimate truth and state of cessation are not mutually exclusive, right? And so from that point of view, according to Prasangika, that the state of abandonment of all those things, which is also the ultimate reality truth, that is what we call natural abiding nirvana, but that's also actual nirvana. Are you with me? So there could be different perspectives with regard to that. No,
what is that? Let me say that. Tingmen yang de, Tingzhen yang de la minyan yang is go.
No.
That let me say, Gerson. Linyong Jalang be Dunge Pumbo Rangil Yungi Kosa Jin de Lazi Yang this. That does about top tanking, Linyong Jal Pumbo Dunge Pumbo Pansange di Tingme Yang de la Langme Yang de Sigurs. Dunge Pumbo the Gul Dame in Shartse machine, Pumbo Kondachi Pantori.
So when we talk about nirvana with remainder or without remainder, really, this is to be understood in the context of what used to be called Hinayana Buddhism, but now we call it Theravadan Buddhism. Okay, and so the idea here is that if you realize if you uproot all the delusions from within your mind, exhausted all contaminated karmic actions, so that is the nirvana you achieved, but you still have this contaminated aggregate of the body, right, which is, the outcome of, delusions and contaminated karmic actions before. So that kind of arahat, the one who achieved nirvana, is called arahat with remainder, or nirvana with remainder. But as soon as you get rid of these contaminated aggregates, then you are the arahat without remainder, or you have achieved nirvana without remainder. So that is in the context of what we call Theravada Buddhism. But when we talk about Minebe Nyangde, non-abiding nirvana, so that is presented from Mahayana Bodhisattva's point of view, so we cannot talk about with or without remainder here. It is the complete enlightened state.
What is that? Shindo pages dance, long general sense of attack, that makes it. Did you Gyunsheva? Repeat general sense and repeat of the Tommy journey, the Gyunsheva Mendus, the darker. Shirama daughter was some long general, and the Dashamo Gomos daughters on this way. Repeat Gyunshi, the Mama Shanghai, the part by Mary, repeat gone, the young judge, and the Karjala sort of Yamada, Manasha, Jiwa is your Dashamo young Gomos daughters, and the neighbor requested something shared with this. That Shindo in the single language around the Gitisha. That is Simson repeating, I think, almost around Jiba, Tenjo, and the request you said the turn to me. Request other to me is the request Yada to me, the mother to me. Your mother didn't use us. And that didn't pass in and didn't pass. Request you said, Mary and Shagamaris to me, you say, what did it?
Something I left from the previous explanation is this, that, the actual nirvanas are the outcomes of cultivating spiritual paths, isn't it? You have to realize the nirvana with or without remainder through spiritual cultivation and practice. And it is true of the complete enlightenment, which is called non-abiding nirvana. But the emptiness, which is a naturally abiding nirvana, it is just how things actually exist, right? Emptiness is not something that you create out of something, or that it didn't exist before and now it exists due to something. That's how things actually exist. So you don't need a path to be able to create an emptiness or something, right? So that's something I left from the previous explanation. Now, as Geshe continues to explain, that according to, now we're staying within the Buddhist schools of tenets of philosophy or thoughts, Vaibhashika, right, Chittamava, Sautrantikas, Dodeba, and the Chittamatrins, mind-only schools, followers of the sutras, okay, Lungi Chenda, as I said. According to them, when you achieve nirvana, right, the consciousness ceases to exist. There is no more going to be continuity of the consciousness. That is their position, right? Which is exactly like you light a butter lamp, and so when the oil runs out, whatever, right, then the fire dies out. Nothing goes after that, right? Just like the blowing out the candlelight, once you achieve nirvana, it's a state where consciousness ceases to exist, so nothing is going to continue after that. So there's not going to be any more rebirth or anything like that. Yeah, so that is the perspective on nirvana according to Vaibhashikas, Sautrantikas, Chittamatrins who follow, sutras. Okay? Whereas Chittamatrins who follow reasoning, right, and the Sevatandika Madhyamikans, Rangjipa, and Prasangika Madhyamikans, Tenjurpa, according to them, when you achieve nirvana, right, consciousness does not cease to exist, right? There is no disruption or discontinuity of the consciousness. There is no end, right, to the consciousness. Just as we said, consciousness has no beginning, it has no end. When you achieve enlightenment or nirvana, it looks like consciousness got lost or something, right? It's not that. It, right, still continues to exist. So those are the different perspectives, on what happens when you achieve nirvana.
어디다 타도 되고 숨조다니 타도 되고 직사지 그래서 어디셔야 되게 다 가지 자저마 냥년데 사지 가서라면 냥년데 리바 준시에 동에들 타도 되고 숨조서다 되고 인도 되고다 랑제 뒤에 되고 타도 되고 되네 야줘야면 타도 되고 제도서는 되네 리바 준시로 말스 심지 탐지 타 खर्चने या सांझे रियोरिया सांझे लोरी रिपा जिंसिया या मारिस कंगते पे सांझे खमा थोया एने रियोरी से दस दोगे दला या ते थादु ते बच्ची ग्रुप सिगोता ते ता समझा बा लोंग जिरा इंजे दे ता काजे.
So in the Buddhist discourses, literatures, we often hear about whether you contend that there are three, vehicles ultimately, or there is just one vehicle ultimately, right? So these all kind of perspectives are related to what we just talked about. Okay? Those who contend that there are three vehicles or yanas ultimately, then we are thinking in terms of Sharavaka yan, hearer's vehicle, and Pratyeka Buddha yan, solitary realizer's vehicle, and then Bodhisattva yan, right? And so this is where they said that, first you achieve nirvana, which is exhaustion of all the delusions and contaminant karmic actions, but you still have your aggregates, so you have achieved nirvana with remainder, leftover. And then once you abandon this body, so now that nirvana is really the nirvana without remainder, isn't it? Then there's the complete enlightenment or natural abiding nirvana, right? Three. But as we said before, that Chittamatra following reasoning, logic, and Savatantaka Madhyamikans and Prasangika Madhyamikans onward, all of them say that ultimately there is one yana or one vehicle, and that is the complete enlightenment or Buddhahood. Right? All sentient beings, can eventually become enlightened beings, isn't it? When you become enlightened beings, right, you're all same enlightened beings, but even as enlightened being, your consciousness continues to exist. It's not going to, right, discontinue as other, Buddhist schools, right, contend.
What is your karsa? Sashi nyangde zani karsa. Rajamadu Gopal Nyamba Shivet, Deval Nyamba Shadi. Keva the Karsa, the Nyamba Shadi Sigdo, De Shiba Gonde, the Oma does the Sena, in Sanji called the good, Shonas and the Tosa Tatu Toyo Murzi. And Tato Lam Lonely at Sanji Gombato, the good, Sanji soon good, and Shine Koya, teaching Lam Shonia Sanji, so dig as a she was.
So relating to what we are talking about here, that when one attains nirvana, which is the exhaustion of all the delusions and contaminated karmic actions, that state, right, is called nirvana. But with this body and aggregate still, which is a case where other hearts, they absorbed into nirvana, right, this solitary piece of nirvana for eons. They completely get absorbed and they lose the whole sense of time, isn't it? So from Mahayana point of view, Buddhas have to motivate them, right? Wake them up from that absorption. It's just like, hey, wake up. You haven't achieved the final kind of enlightened state. You still need to, cultivate paths and achieve the complete enlightened state, right? What you attain is not the final nirvana, right? Then they wake up from that deep absorption, and then they follow the path, and they can become Buddhas, right? That's from Mahayana point of view.
What is it? Several Tamadam. Gusolo Jubes, Gor, Suguny Laje Dang, Laje Yangde Dang, Shukulame Yangde somebody, Jimmy Yangde Dang, Sumbani, Jimmy Yange the Che, Shani Yangde Dang. Dujala Musun de Noe, Tama Image Shani. Shartse Sharmeche Sumba Inje Nyangde Ngone Mende Nyangde in Godin Dumashi Ingoya Guna Suguniti Membe Sherda Shugula and Godinji Majavi Sher Tadaya Sahile Nyangdeva Dumashi Jedam Zurejan Dumashi Nasona Te Nangata and Gobani Shesum Sauce. Oh, that Dokaji the Tizera Karsa, Kuzunjo Goda, Sew Tabadots, and Lungu the doing the Lami, Sajan Yang de Shogut Lami is so just. Take her Duja Sugu, you made a Duja Naya, Cheba, Laji Lami, Song, Yandi one in Maris, Sugus not Lungu the doing Sugudra. The young days is the Demashirava. Sugudu said, Sugudu, Lungus Jogus, Sanji was Russia, the Yawari Charles was this one the Casa Sugunya, the Laji, the Sugar Harris, the Jai was nominal that Tibetan Shartse, young day one the Kajamari start on the Treasury.
Young one at the Chugula Lago. Yandengone the Chugul.
Yandengone is that Shira Karu Karis Pangba Coronel Yandi Shagoro.
In some sutras, such as Seri Tambedo, Golden Light Sutra, right? I mean, there is a mention of, like with regard to the three enlightened bodies, right? They say that the truth body, Dharmakaya, is the actual nirvana, and then the nirvana without remainder. Nirvana without remainder, and emanation body, nirvana kaya, and complete resource body, sambhoga kaya. These are nirvana with remainder. Okay, such things are mentioned. But what really it means with remainder is not a case of you have a remainder of contaminated aggregates. Remainder in this context means these true form bodies are perceptible, right, to different beings, isn't it? Emanation body is something visible to, right, the perception of, in my footnote, fortunate beings. And then the Sambhoga Kaya is perceptible too, in my footnote, to the Arya Bodhisattvas, right? So it is from that perception point of view, it is said something is a remainder there. Because anyway, the form body and both the form body, emanation body and complete resource body are not nirvana. Because nirvana refers to, as we said, it's a state, where delusions are completely exhausted, isn't it? So, so from that point of view, emanation body and Sambhoga Kaya, complete resource body, are not, nirvana actually. Okay? Because nirvana, according to fundamental wisdom treatise of Nagarjuna, Mule Madhyamika, is that it is a state of course beyond suffering, but it is what we call unproduced state, non-composite state, Dumache in Tibetan, right? Non-composite or unproduced, right? In my footnote, the same as permanent, okay? It's footnote, I'm responsible, okay, translator, that's why I'm saying footnote. Yeah.
What did that? You don't teach it. That 10 years, the Garden, 10 years, two my bear, Laji Lami, Yang Di, Josun, you move my little Bombay. 팅면 자전 베스 풍소 되만네 랑신이 세베 고베 소시 세베 고바고디 세베 냥샤고는 데나가 상마 메베 냥데들 상미 냥데당 냥샤 랑베세 지도 데나 상마예 사지 냥데 소 조바 인라 대다리양 대다시나 냥데니 모두 세베 코르냐 현다 맨다데 상보 냥샤가 상미 냥데 모두 세 테네 지도도 사지 냥데 모두 세베 셔로세 어디다 텐조도 마요 텐디 요 카가 셰다 카가 리레샤
No.
다 exam에도 있어요 어디래 텐조도 저는 되죠 사제다 미년데 대나 한번 예미 시그리스 제가 냠샤 내가서 거사 주년데 상미냐리샤 지도 내가 냐데 가 라세냐데 어디게 텐조도 저도 신다가 등에 법을 빠마고 샤고서 어디게 네가 희지 카가지래다
Ale nyangde di tenan yumelsha.
어디 대노 예미 냐데 코로나께서 개미도 거사 냠샤 코로 주 냐데들 상미냐데샤 냠샤 일랑 상게데 지도 내가 저 라지냐데샤
From Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, how do they differentiate between nirvana with remainder and without remainder, right? So the remainder, according to Prasangika Madhyamikas, really refers to the appearance of true existence. If you have an appearance of true existence, then it is a remainder, right? There's something remnant. If you don't have the appearance of true existence, then there is no remnant or there is nothing left over, right? This is how Prasangikas explain it. So Prasangikas are saying that first you will achieve nirvana without remainder, right? You go into this meditative equipoise state, and there is no appearance of true existence to that arahat's right perception. So this is where you have the nirvana without remainder. Now you get out of that meditative state, you are in a post-meditational period, right? You are break time, in other words. And so now the things can appear to you as truly existent. So you have the appearance of true existence, means nirvana with remainder. So this is very unique way of explaining it from Prasangika point of view.
남의 것도 시에 되는 제도 내가 남의 제도 내가 라지냐데 것도 시에 미시세다 라지라면 동카가 해야 되자 아니 신다는 정주 메시는 게 라지냐데 것이 들라면데 것이 거라 다 대조시는 냠샤카도 해야 되다 게 냠샤카도 사면냐데 게더 이 제도 내가 라지냐데 더 그리죠.
So in other words, that within the Buddhist schools of thought, according to Savatantika Madhyamikans, Rangyipa and the schools down below, right, first you will achieve nirvana with remainder, right? You have the aggregates. And then you abandon the aggregates, then you achieve the nirvana without remainder. But Prasangika is the other way around, because you achieve first the nirvana without remainder because you are in the state of absorption. There is no appearance of true existence. And then when you wake up from that state, you are in a break time, post-meditation period, then things appear to you as true existence. So that is, nirvana with remainder. You know how the perspectives are so different.
连一个写完年了，当我这个个呢，刚才吃饭月面呢，就没看见，你不就写书，从那说我们身上哪里觉得，这我们白的，现在我学到的里面就没得问对吧？没得的，这到有些希望里面的就了，这有就没得问题。 Lokangi, Mibajurde, Minjuro, Heser, Tedaya, Tedagoy, Judine, Simzavarang Lolas, Sus, so Shirigi Tondi Nawa, de Nawa Madravatam, Hiba Dayiza Doji, Hiba Ni Dindo Doji, so. The Chonama Simzabi Tribet Ta Jozula, Jozu Maheda Simzabi Omawa, Jonzi Judam, Oma Betelas, Land of the Namu Lola Yeba Mijuro, Tetana, Simzabi Hilam Jason Doji, Joshua Nam, Togai, She, Jimala Young. There Nirkoga is some Jewish some things are there. Tada de Shirama daughter de Lela some about the Ribashire, the Ga card. That is so some of Shiraka was Oma Governor, I think Sajid, some of Shiraka was your check back. I think I was given here Shiram. He's Bomode Doris, and there that Dorjee shaking is what is your.
Within the Buddhist schools of thoughts or tenets, Siddhanta, Dubta, of course, the lower school's position, lower school here referring to Vaibhashikas and Shantidevas, as compared to Chitta Martin's one school, easy to understand, much coarser level, isn't it? Chitta Martin's, is a higher school of Buddhist thought. Their presentation is relatively much more subtle and profound there. So therefore, in the text it says we are going to very briefly look at, Chitta Martin's standpoint. And this particular outline is in the Uma Konka Rapsal, illustrating the middle way thought also, right? Because Chitta Martin's viewpoints are very subtle as compared to the old school, so it requires kind of special attention, right? Look at it.
Oh, that in your God will carry here as a song. Shidomi was so Shibe Semi Danye de Chubas, Chubu Stigri, that Lutu Sensabedeva. Karsa Sums Shidomi was so Semi Danye de Chubas, Shibe Danye is the Geshe here.
No.
Shidomi Pauzaji Range, Pauzaji Ange, Teta Nanzusi. Shidon Sanachita McGinshan, and so McGinsha, tell them something McGinshan Sharo, what this is on Shiroton Javastir. That's some of us, and Shiroton Javasad Yomari, McGin the Yomaris, McGin was in the course of Pauja on Gordangri Sadi, or the Shidon Major Pauja on the Nanzus, so no, Sujaso, Lord, no, you're no. Communication, but I go all not carrying Pausang and Angres. Or no, the end the thing is on you do hear about was some of the money in Stanford countries. And the thing is on Gaza country, what did you such a road to some of you starting here with this one?
So the special attention to Chitta Martin's viewpoint, of course, the extensive ones, we cannot do it anyway. It requires in many other texts, but the brief presentation says we may briefly look at three things. One, Chitta Martins do not accept external objects, right? Externally existent objects, Chidan. Yeah? Because everything that exists is in the nature of perceptions. So there are no external objects, right? That's the big thing about Chitta Martins, right? Everything is in the nature of perceptions. Yeah. So therefore, when a visual perception persists a form, it is not that a form acts as an objective condition generating the visual perception, in which case there is an external object. Are you with me? Chitta Martins are saying that these perceptions, visual perception, auditory perception, olfactory perception, and so on, so these arise from the imprints, pakcha, right? Predisposition, latencies, that's their standpoint. So what appears to this perception are not external objects, but imprints, right, of imprints in the perceptions. And then another point is we look at, the true truths from Chitta Martin point of view, Tembanye. Then the third point is that we look at the three characteristics of phenomena, three natures of phenomena, Chinyisum, right? So those are, important issues that briefly looked at from Chitta Martin Mandalist point of view. So first we want to define who are the Chitta Martins and one only school proponents, right? Of course, these are Buddhist philosophical, masters or followers, proponents, I should say, and who refute externally existent objects through reasoning, right? That means they don't accept external existent objects. They refute it through reasoning, but they do accept that perceptions are truly existent. Yeah, so Chitta Martins are Buddhist tenet proponents who refute externally existent objects through reasoning and logic, metaphysics, but who assert that the perceptions are truly existent, Tentu. Okay, so that's the definition of Chitta Martins.
That's sometimes
sometimes they are also known by other terms like it's just Lokacharians or like Namrikpa. Now I don't remember the Sanskrit term because it really care, but it is Namrikpa Siddhukala ke Kawaku or Tondadi. Namrikpa said Sequala Tondadi.
Namrikpa this word.
Right. So that means that those who who presents that all things are in the aspect or the nature of perceptions, nothing exists externally out there. So that's called Namrikpa. Okay. So cognitive, let's say cognitive presenter. Okay, literally translating. Yeah.
What is that now? No, Hiba Zele Hele, Zele maybe, Hiba Zele, he maybe, no Hibale, the he maybe, the maybe she should have the symptom to trouble he did she don't got symptom to Rujula, Luri, Lung Dodda Sajibale. GSTDL, the young the same day, that comes over the same time, Sheda. Langile, she don't know you made the same another norm, so no. Luda Lungi Ninja, similar to the Geshe Hedan. Here, Gondre, Chamji Lu. Get to book over so, the long tennis, the drobo. Regret to do that. She removed rather Maroja, she don't know them. She but the embarrassment pay you the demon Tata Lord now. Come Chung Yen Kansak Minute language Chujuba now. You mother soon yes or you pay them. Sahi making the Raja Tahi now Zaba now at them. Miduba ding the totally psychic of the king cover now. Tongue. Leisure for contabu. Nobody young. Letom de da genle. Sami ida gahila düzü da şu da nara nam de teden no kono tamje no da mawjok jang teda di zimbe shiba jewa jewa shendu suso shido du naya no da mawjok da no yishiba da ne demba chobu shido chobo shido gobe rigba tikdi nishiba do da namje so seman do se namje so le maudu song so se der shido meba zang shiba le de shembe shido tondu chebe suso meba sheba yinje nguso du chebe suso meba sheba meno dena 엄마 be dero ju suso mishija demba majibe suso sheba shenos tasam dozi tese shiro tonjwa meshide suso shiro tonjwa meshide zana ene suso meva sa kojo maris 엄마 suso dero meshide zana su deba cha meshide ma su meshide ma de jiwares wa de shibe da ni joser ma su ene shiro meshide su meva tonjo marite mena naya kid yoris. Kamba sungju na langboji chut naya jawada. Eno gimeta naya kanji kandaja. Lo na let's esgayo maris. Nazo na shoris. The na shogoya. Eno shiru tondi mena shiru tora na shogoras. And izimiz lo na yogo maris. Yogo na eno kamba sungju na langboji chut to you chung marwa. Tina naya do has what is it?
So when Chitta Martin said there are no externally existent sensual objects, including form, this should not be understood as saying, as if Chitta Martin saying that form, sound, and those things don't exist at all. Okay, just like when the mathematicians say that things are not truly existent, it doesn't mean that mathematicians are saying things don't exist at all, right? So that would be the wrong interpretations, right? So first we want to clear up that part. Okay. So what the Chitta Martins are saying that there is a disparity between how things appear to you and how they actually exist. The disparity is that phenomena appear to the perception as externally existent, but they really don't exist that way. Yeah. So that's a big, that's why remember Chitta Martins, they refute external objects or externally existent phenomena by way of reasoning, but they accept the perceptions as truly existent. Yeah. And so for them, that, with regard to things appearing in the mind, anything can appear in the mind, right? Things don't really have to exist for them to appear to our mind, okay? If the condition is that for anything to appear to the mind that it should exist, he said, then how can you explain that when you dream about a small, tiny house filled with elephants, how is that possible, isn't it? A small house cannot accommodate one elephant, then elephants, right? You can dream about that. He said, and then what about the illusions, and mirage? He said, so things don't have to exist for them to appear to our mind. So things appear to us truly exist as externally existent, but that's not how they exist. This is the standpoint of Chitta Martins.
Shiro Tunda no, you have to pick a data, Amzo Koya, to make some Ganga Shiro, nobody, Ganga Musu Shagoro. She does tell you, Lord, no, easy, Lord, no, Yoko Marison, Tadaoti, Jumata, Petty, Shadi, you come with Shuna, Lambo's Chu. Lambo's chosen among what zero. Come with Shuna, Lambo's Chupa, and you know, didn't hire your Shaza. Lord, no, Ganga. Yoko Maris, but the Pema, what they tell the world.
No, sir.
What is it?
So, things appear to our sensory perceptions, right? It looks like, they are externally there, form, sound, right? We can hear the sound, right? But in reality, according to them, they appear to our perceptions, sensory perceptions, as externally existent, but they really don't exist that way. Okay? And things really don't have to exist externally to appear to our mind. So then they give you all these examples about illusions, Maya, and then just like we said, a tiny house, room filled with elephants. We said plural, okay? Elephant is one, right? The whole hordes of elephants are there. How is that possible, right?
What did that go pay Mongolia, the consciousness of Konago? Also, the year to go so she was or the also the Yabon got that country. But Lord knows how you go with a middle de Naya to us, Jimeta de Naya to us, in the Mutuba go the side in reach Naya to us. The only moon is the Yomar of the Naya to us. She said, no, so you go over your Maris, but it do have to do what I.
So, the Martins try to refute this kind of a standpoint that although to our sensory perceptions, it seems as if form, sound, smell, all of those things externally exist. This is how we directly engage with them, right? But in reality, they are not. Okay? So they are counteracting that. He said, without things being externally existent, they could still manifest in our perceptions, they can appear. So then they give you this, like, so many examples, like say, when you are meditating on repulsiveness, right, that the whole surface is filled with skeletons, right, the whole earth is filled with skeletons. Really, all the skeletons appear to your perception. But in reality, the whole earth is not filled with skeletons, So that's what they're saying. Because things appear to our perceptions as if they're really real there, it doesn't have to be that way, right? That's what they are, objecting to. Right?
What is that? The best table to take her day, the woman symbols at the case there. Because the was the sure, super had miss some, it does some Tuesday time, because the so leg top here, had this now. Milchuranga, what is Chure there? That not that Nagasido.
No.
But the good Nagoya was a teacher. Says so leg now not of the thing, so Gaga Yonrak be told this. So the pet yard of the symbols, almost symbols at the Sigdo, see what that. Said Tonda time on the one is children shoot the last car, Somebody does some teacher does. Hi, do this milchurang, Tashugo, and he does not do just one of the Nagoro.
No.
What I said, no, to us, tell a young Rasha or she's a patient, the Lord Nana Yogo Marisin, best issue to show.
No. So a classic example that is very popularly accepted in the Buddhist world, so to speak, or literature is, where we use this example of let's say a glass of water, right? Make it modern, a glass of water. So as human beings, we look at, there's my glass of water. Oh, here, there, my water bottle. So as humans, whatever is in that appears as water, right? That's the human perception. Now, if the divine beings, the Devtas look at it, they see nectar there. They don't see water. Okay? Now, if the pretas, the hungry ghosts look at that, they see that as pus and blood. Yeah. So, as we said, so it doesn't have to exist, right? External is something for things to appear to your mind, because for humans it's a water, for divine beings it's a nectar, for the pretas it's a pus and blood, And so how is that possible? So it has to do with one's karmic dispositions and imprints that we see, right, there. Right.
What did that? They that some of the done what is called here that you should your mercy here to the she doesn't pay no to cover your marva. Could that is the arms also makes so to go. Go up and do as she can your. She's a thing pay your mercy. 那多是要啊，就是听过过百毛毛成这个，这是。
So Chitta Martins know that what they are saying is not something that really easily appeals to the ordinary perceptions, right? They're almost like, what are you talking about? There are forms there, I see it, there is a sound, I hear it, so you are kind of denying everything I see, right? So it's not a very popular kind of thing appealing to the ordinary perceptions, but they said, no, in reality, that's what it is. You know, they don't exist externally, but they appear to our perceptions as externally existent, you know? So to explain that whole sort of what called reality, then they started to use all kinds of these examples, like the Maya, the illusions, and the skeleton-filled earth, and then, you know, a small, tiny room filled with all kinds of elephants and all of that, right? Examples to explain that.
我对他常常这些我的，我们容易是可是听见是容易里面想着，容易是那容易也是里面面想，什么不是那西路头的面想这个，听见，那多的不是那西路头一般就我就说的，可常常就不是什么不想是启动要么是想，在我的场上我那就。 老农村能一出嘛是吧？现在可甚至不的，他就没得想要嘛是吧？我知道这个做的这的要的，和农村能一个大的个嘛是吧？现在地上上甚至不想的，他就得要没得想没得事的，这说的要的，其实要没得事的上，那说啥要没得想没得，可能农村上的特别难的要的要没得事情，的些有的的要。 其他嘛，多的吧，什么都我们这个日本查到这些，两些查些的，他有两头这个是吧？我这里。
So as we talked about this before also, that when we look within the standpoints of different schools of Buddhist thoughts, tenets, now what's presented in the lower schools relatively are, right, more coarse forms of realities, and what's presented in the higher schools are becoming more subtle and subtler, isn't it? So therefore, it is a little bit more difficult, challenging to understand the realities presented in high Buddhist schools of thought. The example, again, Geshe gives here is like, say, for example, Southern Tika's Buddhist schools say that there are external objects, okay? Which seems to be easy with us, right? External objects, you know, agreeable to us. Then what called the Chitta Martin says there are no external objects, which is very disagreeable to us, you know, because it's getting subtle. Then Prasangika Madhyamika says that things do not exist intrinsically, right? The Seventh Madhyamika says, oh, things are intrinsically existent, but not truly, right? So it's kind of very subtle, isn't it? The Seventh Madhyamika says there are no intrinsically existent phenomena, but they are truly existent. And then you go higher up, Prasangika says, give me a break. There are nothing that's intrinsically existent. So it becomes even more subtle, right? So this is how, you know, all these schools are like rungs in a ladder, staircase. So finally, the idea is that we are able to understand the Prasangika's standpoint on realities.
我这里开始啊，初步是先动过为日本听的28等到的南镇，所以是忙着送说是他的日本这个的时候，才开始过日本听的是呢，怕他们听的些，28是一年这是吧？这些。 能多的是的，这么多，这么工的，那我收那些，那么这是那么这是我，那我说啥些，我第一个启动过为是管是空着给我送，是第一个送有的是我的这个。
So where do we find, you know, different reasonings or logics or metaphysics Chitta Martins use to refute externally existent phenomena or objects, is that, for example, we could find that in the Arya Asanka's Thigdu, condensed what are called yana or vehicles, Thigdu. Or we can also find it in the Vasubandhu's Nishubha called 20. Maybe it's a 20 stanza or 20 line, I don't know, maybe 20 stanza probably. It's 20 something, okay, it's called Nishubha. And it's also, you could find in the Dignaka's Tsemando, compendium of valid cognitions, right? Sutra Samukcha. Okay? It also can be seen in the Dharmakirti's Pramana, valid cognition. So you can find, right, these are the reference sources Chitta Martins referred to, right, to support their contention and standpoint.
Song source, there Shido Mejabayang, Shiva the Zeshe, Shido Tondi Tribe, Suso Meva Shiva Inje, Musu the Tribe, Suso Meva Shiva Meno, then Oma Bay, Dendro Suso Mejan, Meja Demba Matrabe, Suso Yuva Shiva Hino, the sense of a Shido Mes, Shiro Torjo So Me but Shiro Torjo So Me but So Me Maris. But Oma Tejo Ragting Joe So Me what the Chivaris, what this is the Gaja Chaval Jan until she don't say the Gaja Javar or Tiris. What this is.
So as we said it before, that when Chitta Martins say there are no external phenomena or external existent phenomena, we should not decode or translate that to mean that Chitta Martins are saying there are no phenomena like form, sound, etc. Because that would be wrong decoding and wrong translation there. Just as when the Prasangika Madhyamika can say there are no intrinsically existent phenomena, that should not be decoded as saying like no phenomena exists at all, right? Because that would be the wrong translation and wrong decoding the message. Why, all these complexities come about, it all boils down to, as we looked at before, what kind of object of negation is identified and refuted, right? Different schools of thought have different objects of negation we call gaksha, object of refutation, and that's why these different standpoints come about.
What the Nipan Shido Milna, Nati Nambaji Sim Kiva Shidatena, Nati Jumung Simsam Lula, Lu Jubali, Shidalunko Jasonis, Shell Shilam Shigin. Sawan Kuyi Hechale, Rong Nivena Gita Ishon Shede, Pen Long Jebe, Jatole Bala Shoma Shendi, Chirutana Faza Kushi, the Yevati, Mimbale, the Susoji, Shirutondu, no, Shiba Dendro, Yawaino, his. Or there's some Kushi said, Kushi said, Shiba, Namshi Soki said, what is it? Kushi said, he got Paza Shash, Shada long Jadu that Jazol because should have damaged the Mambo Yerba. Or tell you what, he Kushi del Paza, yes, I know the damage of Mambo Yonshori, Shido Yeva Meva said, Lord Naya Conde became Lord Nago to yours and today.
So the question is, if there are no externally existent phenomena, then how could perceptions arise, right? And the Chitta Martins, they talk about, the importance, the role of imprints or pakcha on the mind basis of all, alayan vijnan, or the Kunshi, sometimes translated as foundation consciousness. Literally it means the mind basis of all, or Alayan Vijnan, Kunshi. It has a lot of imprints. When these imprints get activated, then all kinds of appearances and perceptions happen. Just like when the wind is blowing, then the ocean gets stirred. All kinds of tides and cyclones and the waves, all kinds of things happen. So like that, when the imprints are activated, then perceptions arise. So this is their explanation. Chitta Martins accept 8 consciousnesses, remember? And that includes, mind basis of all, or the foundation consciousness, right, Kunshi.
Okay. The Kunshi said that the sense of Kunshi the Shagri said, Kunshi said the conditions, what he gets in. Kunshi the Pasa is on knees. Then Churva, Nami Kunshi, then was some Kunshi. Tangwan Nashi, Soji, Nang Kunshi Nashi, Tilla, young Migwe Chever, what Tonga, Ombonga, Mushinji, Pasa, de Summa Migba. On top of that, on the Nibas. Nabe Chever, New Zealand, no young, never dream in the bay. Shindu Missua, Muchever, Madalumate, Troy Chever, Simju Kudanga, someone them was. Tedaki, Yemigo Lumate, sometimes Zi, Tadi, Jimmy, Jubate. Timmy, Lame, young, Moody, Shikami, pardon. Tixi, Dozetta, thing is the Padu Jula. Tii, Nipane, and Dogos, but the Gushi said, Caress and that is her. Tembasamu, that day Nami, Tembasamu with that Tembas Nami, said, Caress. Get me a Pasa shows that you get. And called Dobe Chevas, Timmy, Lamy, and the top guard, do Tixina, and the Dozetta with things, do Tiba to go. Senior Ganga, you could say a degrees. But the next and it go more Mata Lumati, get me a Hayamari called Pasa shows the hero. Mata Lumati, similar to Jules, Ganga, you think. What the next day. Gu miso namji shuk chumbo mewa. Sela masu soju kaji. O deres yo res varda.
So then, what is this Alayana Vijnan, or the foundation consciousness or mind basis of all, Kunshi, right? Of course, this use the term called. This is related to like the what call this is okay. Let me put it this way. This is like a foundational consciousness, mind basis of all, which carries the imprints of karmas, good and bad, and all of that. Right? Imprints of the karma are deposited on this Alyan Vijnan, and it carries that. And but this consciousness itself is kind of not that very manifest. It's not very clear, right, under your nose kind of thing. It's just kind of there. It's just like hazy kind of consciousness there. But it exists within every sentient beings, right? But its own nature is neither positive nor negative. We call it neutral, right, unspecified, okay? The nature of Alyan Vijnan is neither positive nor negative, so that's neutral, isn't it? It carries the imprints of good, bad, all kinds of karmas there. Yeah? And so it exists in all sentient beings, and it continues, like if you look within the Theravadan tradition, until you achieve nirvana without remainder. Okay? It just goes all the way there. From my inner point of view, it continues until you reach the Dorjee Tingchen, Vajra-like absorption, right? Until then, it just continues. So that's what Alyan Vijnan is. That is the foundation consciousness or mind basis of all.
What is it because take me tell about teaching those things about Juguri, so the Jugu Chavasista. Kotanda seems to touch a Kadu Gagagi. But the day the person and the Rami young dito, take me in a teaching those that were to do didn't marry, did you push you? Because some years to do the good marry or that kind of thing. So this is it. She told you couldn't Chavash. Pardon, teaching those the ruler, Tini Geshe Nyebanan do go statin do Tigeto Sumshiba, this Kung Sumshiba said the Lobo Inyek Dejanjo. Tell a Guyin Namshine Namin Savu Tamsiba, Tin the Lambat Tada, ne, Namba Reda Merigba, Tad Reda Yishetan, Reda Dishi Simbandi, tell us Soata Yunte, Tin the Mata Lomate, Konukush Dereda, Susukuranga Sumba Denge, Mumata Lomate, or Tad Misiwa, Nalamangi, you don't get sent to Remari. Was Mata Lomate is. Dev Lumate, Numujan Sigara, Seko Lumate, that Mata Lomate is. Ribaso Riba Rizol Rilasaba taking those the Dago Soanga Kudonga. Then Jumbo Shu Shin, Rajuni and the Ten Dogo said, "Oh, the Tangita Timmy Lami Dajunda, teaching those that were things doors or the Gazette. Tell that. Tell Dene Lambata, ne, number breakdown. She's a condarus, maybe Chaba Dende, Ambogani, New Langjatan. Mushi Bajagis, Lunua Lemba Boyimbi, Tin, Jugi number come, Lembe number Tara. Tongane, Nugi number come. Namrikan, Nuji, Tongane, Nuji Namrik, come, Nigi Namrik, Nus and the National Jiwarada, Shitters. Miriba here, Casa Mirik Sheba, Conda, Nabe Sheva Rose, here called the Sheva, Sconuso. Gondela Lembenja was somewhat Sujiba. She is a song squishy Nancy La Tixen Tumu Timila Wishin Namshi La Tixen Timila Tab on the Shena Nami Namshi, some Tamshi Namshi Lemben Namshi Jang Chala. This some Tonja goes. Lembe Namshi, the Savos of Gunamshi, Nami Namshi, she went Nami is Juro, because Nami showed Joseph. Sometimes Pazashas Namshi scenario. Lembe Namshi said to go Jal and don't get the Guis at Dura. No, that Jal and don't get Tubanamshi, Ignacia, thinking Ignacia, Geshe or that, the thing, because symptoms. Cushion, she said, Kivalin, don't get a good said, Ligoro. What is that? Take it to Mama Trabe on the Sena. Now she near me, now she done. Sometimes she now she lembed, now she saw young Shala. This is Tonju goes. Or till that, Kushikora moved to the rest. That then Nami Kushi said. Then Nami Kushi said, that Kushi won it or something, or did it?
No. So, I mean, the technical word in Tibetan, just to be faithful translator, sometimes when we do literal translation, it doesn't become in English, but who can get the meaning? So, ten nami kunshi, ten means the basis, right? Nami means ripening, and kunshi is the alayan vijan, or the foundation consciousness. So it is known by different names, right? Just like we said, ten nami kunshi, which is the ripening alayan vijan, which is the foundation or the basis. That's one name, and it's also called, what called the basis of karmic actions and results, because according to Chitta Martins, foundation consciousness is the basis of karmic imprints and all of that, right? And so it can be known by different names there. So as Vasubandhu, describes in one of his works called Sumjupa 30, I hope it's 30 stanzas. So where he talks about how this foundation consciousness or mind basis of all consciousness, Kunshi, is actually accompanied by the 5 omnipresent mental factors, Kundunga, including feelings. But that itself is neither positive nor negative. Its nature is, right? Neither positive. And it's kind of not a very visible or very under your nose kind of a consciousness. It's kind of a little hazy. It's there, but not very clear, right? That's the one. And according to Chaitanya Martins, it is this Alayan Vijnan of foundation consciousness that goes from one life into another life, right? Because we talk about the rebirth, right? What goes from one life to another life, and who takes rebirth? According to Chaitanya Martins, it is this Alayan Vijnan, which in other schools we talk about the 6th consciousness, mental, right? That is what goes from one life to another life. But Chaitanya Martins accepts 6 consciousnesses, so then the foundation consciousness, Alayan Vijnan, is the one that goes from one life to another life. And it continues until, as we said, you achieve nirvana without remainder, then it ceases to exist. Or from my point of view, it continues until you achieve the Vajra-like absorption, then it ceases to exist. Yeah? So these are the characteristics of Alayan Vijnan, or the mind basis of all. So we will stop there today. We need to do a sock offering, and so kamanga shagman yang kunzo kashi log the roage. Ngo do the say roage. And yang so keleme just log to roage. Kamanga spori shag roage. So as I said, we will do a short dedications because we will do the long one during the talks, and then we can take a 5 minutes break, something. So those who don't have a talk commitment, so you are free, to go and enjoy your lunch. Chanjo zemjo rembo je ma je banan ye yo je ye wa nyamba meba gong ne gong do pe wa sho dong ni da wa rembo je ma je banan ye yo ye wa nyamba meba yang gong ne pe wa sho sa ji be jin jo ji me do da re la lin je yin de yin ba de sang je xin do me de we wa ye do wen nan da xin la je ba sho yi dang go ro men de la ga ne yan da ya min jia wa guen do yang da la ma dang de me shi je be la long je sa da lam je yuan de rab zo do je chang ge go ba nyu do sho